This is Jason Canigan for Make Space Boring News. I am here with Dr. Gordon Roesler, and we're going to talk about something cool. We've sort of approached this topic a little bit in the past, but I want to keep up with it. And Dr. Roesler here is nice enough to come back. He runs Robots in Space. Thanks for being here.
I am glad to be here, Jason. It's always fun to talk to you.
All right.
Yeah, there is some news in this area of a reusable space transportation infrastructure. But before I get to the news, talk about some facts. A fact is that SpaceX is reusing their first stages. They're bringing them back. They're getting those expensive engines. And they're able to use those stages again and that sort of thing. Brings costs down, makes the cost of getting to space cheaper. It makes sense. And then when we talk about transportation infrastructures, I always think about Amazon. Amazon didn't have to create its own transportation infrastructure. It already existed. UPS, FedEx, Postal Service. And building on that, he was able to create one of the world's 5 largest companies. Having infrastructure, having a transportation infrastructure opens new capabilities, new possibilities. It unlocks value in investor speak when you have something like that. So what about unlocking value in space? That was actually the title of an editorial that I wrote in Aerospace America about a year ago, Unlocking Value in Earth Orbit. So the good news, the news is that someone is doing something about this. The Defense Innovation Unit out in Mountain View, California, has started a program, and it's called MultiOrbit Logistics. And DIU doesn't do defense-only kind of things like most other parts of the Defense Department do. They're looking for commercial solutions that they can enhance or tweak in some way and make them useful to the Department of Defense while not interfering with the company's business plan and their revenue approach and that sort of thing. So they have started this program called MultiOrbit Logistics. And there are about 4 components to it. There's a light orbital logistics vehicle that can take maybe 100 kilograms from low Earth orbit to GEO. There's a heavy orbital logistics vehicle that can take maybe a couple of tons out to GEO. And GEO is not the only orbit of interest. They're saying, well, cislunar, the moon, eccentric orbits, these kind of things. Another component of the program is a fuel depot, which if you're having a reusable transportation infrastructure is obviously essential. And the 4th element of the program is some innovative approaches to ride sharing. How can we get things out there in non-traditional ways so we don't always have to buy a launch vehicle and this sort of thing. So the announcement was made that this program was starting back in February. A bunch of companies proposed. It's in the selection and contracting process now. So no names can be released at this time, but we should be seeing things happening soon.
All right. Well, this is super important. Infrastructure is key. And then once you start getting this stuff available, you can build on top of that, like you said, and the investors like that because it means a faster turnaround time to profit. People aren't standing around wondering what to do next or kind of hewing things out of rock.
Yeah, it enables a whole new way of thinking about space. We have what I call a disposable mentality in space right now. You send a satellite out, if anything doesn't work or if it runs out of gas, you just throw it away, right? For something that costs $500 million or $1 billion, that's a little crazy, right? So the more, as you probably remember, and some of your listeners may remember, I started a program at DARPA called Robotic Servicing of Geosynchronous Satellites in order to start turning that mentality around. But hey, a robotic servicer, which Northrop Grumman is now building for DARPA, needs supplies, right? So this kind of infrastructure can tie to RSGS, can also tie to the Lunar Gateway. And not all logistics have to go in one way. I mean, you can imagine products coming back from the moon and going to places where they can be used for construction and assembly and manufacturing in space, that sort of thing. So there's no reason it can't be a 2-way infrastructure. But it connects a lot of these things together.
Right. Yeah, and we're going to get there. We need this stuff, but I like to see movement on it. What is the next step for this stuff? How do we know when they're getting ready to actually make something?
DIU is interesting because they don't drive the public relations process. They let the companies that they're working with make those decisions. So once companies are under contract, they might decide they want the publicity and, hey, let's put out a press release, or they might decide to stay in stealth mode and not put anything out for a while. So the real answer to your question is I'm not exactly sure, but within a couple of years, I think we'll see significant progress. Both the commercial industry investors and the Defense Department are interested in using this kind of capability. So I can see it growing relatively quickly. And I suspect NASA as well, although I don't think I'm not aware of any significant discussions with NASA on using this capability, but I don't see why they wouldn't be interested in it for the gateway, for example.
Isn't that curious?
Well, they're going to be, SpaceX was recently selected as the NASA partner to bring supplies to the gateway, but those are scheduled. What if there's an unscheduled need? A repair part has to go out, or a blood sample has to come back because something might be wrong with somebody. Having a logistics infrastructure that's in place makes the whole thing more robust, safer, and as well as make it more efficient.
Well, very good. And I look forward to having you back to update us more, Gordon, as things occur. My guest here has been Dr. Gordon Roesler of Robots in Space. Thanks for doing this.
It's an exciting time in space. Thanks for having me, Jason.